I can't believe I'm saying this because this is a huge twist to the story, but DeAndre Hopkins' value isn't what we think it is. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of teams that are kind of backing away from him for this particular reason, and there are a lot of parallels that we could draw as a result of it. So I have a huge update to bring to you guys in regards to where teams are currently in the arms race for DeAndre Hopkins. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, work! So we have a $1,000 giveaway from Prize Picks. They're giving 5 of us a chance to win $1,000. All you have to do is click the link in the description down below to sign up for a chance to be selected to make a 5-pick flex to win $1,000. They're also giving us a free square. Nikola Jokic just needs 1 point in order for his square to hit, which means we only need 1 more pick in order to make money here. I'm just going to play it safe, man. We're going to do Caleb Martin, 12.5 points, rebounds, and assists in the first half. And if he hits that, we make $75. Use my promo code Mikerophone to get up to a $100 deposit match on Prize Picks. Now let's get to the video. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The last time we talked about DeAndre Hopkins was when the Arizona Cardinals made the surprising decision to release him. A decision that was kind of head-scratching to say the least, considering the fact that they were attempting to trade him before the NFL draft. Unfortunately, they couldn't really find a suitor for DeAndre Hopkins, and I thought we were definitely going to see DeAndre Hopkins on the Arizona Cardinals, particularly after I saw this video.
I see everybody tell me to stay. Who said I want to go? Who said I wanted to leave? I'm out here working, baby. What's up?
Now, since then, there's been a lot of speculation in regards to what team he could potentially play for, and we have a huge update on that, in addition to some teams that may have even joined the race. A fun idea that I floated at the time was none other than the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, just imagine Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Odell Beckham Jr., DeAndre Hopkins, and Mark Andrews on the same offense. It just sounds like a lot of fun to watch, and I would hope that it would work out, assuming that the Ravens do sign Lamar Jackson. And in the very beginning, the opening odds for Lamar Jackson in regards to the team that is most likely to sign him was none other than the Dallas Cowboys, then the Kansas City Chiefs, then the New England Patriots, then the Buffalo Bills, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And what team DeAndre Hopkins chooses to sign with really comes down to what he wants. If you're a player that wants to be the focal point of an offense and potentially contribute to winning a Super Bowl on a team, I would say his best options in this particular instance would be the Kansas City Chiefs, because if you go to the Dallas Cowboys, there's a chance that you won't have as large of a role, because the Cowboys already have 3 top receivers, although we're kind of lukewarm on Michael Gallup, but you have CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, so there is a chance that DeAndre Hopkins could get buried on that roster, depending on how healthy he is. I know that's an absurd statement to say. The parallel I'm drawing here is very similar to Julio Jones in the latter part of his career, and I'll tell you why in just a sec. I think the Kansas City Chiefs make the most sense for him. I mean, you're going to a team that has an offensive genius as their head coach and the best quarterback in the entire NFL. Signing on with the Kansas City Chiefs for a season could elevate your value as a player, and you could probably hit the market next year and secure 1 more large contract before your career is officially over. Now, the New England Patriots are a very fascinating destination, and there's a lot of conflicting content that suggests DeAndre Hopkins would want to go to the Patriots. I mean, we all know this clip with him and Bill Belichick from HBO's Hard Knocks.
I'm glad we only have to play you every 4 years, man.
I love you, man.
You too. You too. What a career you're having. Miss half the season, still going to lead the league in receiving.
You know I do my job, man.
Yeah.
Trying to get better, man.
And then the most recent team that is entering the race as a result of Deshaun Watson is none other than the Cleveland Browns. Now, of course, Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins have a history from their time together on the Houston Texans. So when Deshaun Watson was asked whether or not he would like DeAndre Hopkins on the Cleveland Browns, this is what he had to say.
Well, me and D-Hop, we just naturally talk. We've been talking since, the Houston days, and then also whenever he left for Arizona, we were always talking. So, he's always been a brother of mine since I was coming out of high school. Our connection, our relationship has always been great. And I know it's a lot of things swirling around in the media of, him possibly coming to Cleveland. And, for me, my answer to that is, of course, we would love to have him. He knows that. We had a lot of connections, but that's kind of out of my range of things, of kind of coordinating things. So all I can do is make a call and see what happens, let AB do the rest.
Now, would it make sense for the Cleveland Browns to sign DeAndre Hopkins despite them recently trading for Elijah Moore, already having Amari Cooper, having Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Bell on the roster? I don't necessarily know if that's a situation that DeAndre Hopkins would find attractive because, one, the Cleveland Browns don't have a lot of cap flexibility to sign DeAndre Hopkins, and two, things would be drastically different than the time that DeAndre Hopkins spent with Deshaun Watson on the Houston Texans. And it seems like DeAndre Hopkins has to choose between putting himself in a situation where he could win a Super Bowl and potentially be featured in an offense, or putting himself in a situation where he most definitely won't win a Super Bowl. I mean, at least on paper, it doesn't seem that way, but he will without a doubt be a huge part of the offense. I mean, the top contender, in my opinion, that is in a situation to sign DeAndre Hopkins and probably make him the focal point of the offense would probably be the New England Patriots. But at the same time, DeAndre Hopkins said that he wants to play with an established quarterback. So you would think if that's the case, then he would want to choose between the Browns, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Ravens, and the Bills. Now, DeAndre Hopkins definitely is having fun with this. I mean, he posted this video of the New England Patriots winning the Super Bowl onto his Instagram story the other day. But ever since then, we have multiple articles suggesting that DeAndre Hopkins has virtually no value in the NFL right now. And this is coming from Albert Breer. The DeAndre Hopkins situation is first and foremost a lesson in NFL economics. In the end, Arizona couldn't get anything for the star receiver it made a blockbuster trade for 3 years ago. And that most certainly isn't an indication that he can't play anymore, nor that he might not have value to another team. It's that he didn't have value at $19.45 million. The Cardinals were never going to pay him that. Neither were the other 31 teams. So that left Arizona to put Hopkins on the trading block at the start of the offseason and wait and wait and wait. The Cardinals gave other teams permission to talk to him and his representation, and they kept taking cash off of their asking price. They were even willing to buy a draft pick as part of it. All of that led to Friday's release of Hopkins, putting the 11th year receiver who turns 31 in a week on the market. Albert Breer's guess would be that the market bears something around half of what he would have made on his now terminated deal in 2023, with some incentives to get him closer to being whole. But at this juncture of the offseason, even getting there could be a challenge. And then Breer begins to tell us what we could expect moving forward. Primarily, two of the biggest contenders for DeAndre Hopkins' services. The Cardinals were giving any teams who wanted to talk to Hopkins permission to do so. Two teams that got such permission, the Chiefs and Bills, spoke to Hopkins and Omni, and those two were the only two that engaged Arizona in trade talks. So the interest in giving up a pick or two to get Hopkins was pretty tepid. Arizona's initial asking price was a second-round pick and another asset, but by the end, it was willing to part with him for a lot less than that. And my sense is they would have considered picking up a chunk of his salary, obviously the higher the pick, the more it might give, to say get a top 100 pick. But again, there simply wasn't interest in paying Hopkins top dollar and giving up a day 2 draft pick for him. So this kind of explains DeAndre Hopkins' Instagram story at the beginning of the video where he said, "Who said I wanted to leave?" At that point, he understood that his value isn't what it once was. Now, DeAndre Hopkins' camp tried to push Arizona to pick up more money, but there really wasn't anything compelling them to do so without a premium pick attached to the deal. This wasn't like the Brandon Cooks or Allen Robinson trade, where the Texans and Rams respectively were dealing with guaranteed money, and picking up some meant getting to not pay the rest. Kansas City made progress towards a deal, but things went a little sideways when Odell Beckham Jr. got $15 million in base pay from Baltimore, making Hopkins feel like he should land at least that much, given that Beckham didn't play last year. The Chiefs wound up giving free agent left tackle Donovan Smith a deal structured similarly to the offer they made Hopkins, which will make it more difficult for Kansas City to circle back. So you can see that DeAndre Hopkins is a little trapped here, because at the point that he was released, a lot of teams already spent their money, and Hopkins was led astray by Odell Beckham Jr.'s contract. And I don't necessarily blame him, man. OBJ hasn't played in over 2 years at this point. Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't played since the Rams Super Bowl victory versus the Cincinnati Bengals. So to come out of that and get the contract that he did is absolutely phenomenal. And when you compare that to DeAndre Hopkins, when he was active, he was performing really well, so I could understand why he would want at least $15 million in base pay. Although OBJ's contract is a prove-it deal, no one is going to give D-Hop that amount of money this late in free agency just to prove himself. Now, the Bills similarly were willing to do a pay-for-play sort of deal loaded with incentives. My feeling is that it leaves them in the same place that the Chiefs are with Hopkins. The only way it happens is if his price comes down. And if you add all that up, I think we get one of two conclusions. Either Hopkins finds someone to pay up everything and takes the bag, or he takes less to chase a ring with Kansas City or Buffalo, with the idea of putting together a full healthy 2023 season could burnish his legacy and perhaps set up one last payday next March, which is what we were saying in our previous video. I mean, it's either you take the bag or you try to set yourself up for one last crazy bag for your post-prime years, which if DeAndre Hopkins puts up great numbers on the Kansas City Chiefs, which I'm confident that he could, then it's definitely a possibility if he's able to figure out what team he's going to be on within the next week or so. But Albert Breer makes one very interesting point, and that's that there's a healthy divide on exactly what Hopkins has left. Breer asked one veteran team executive what's still there, and he answered via text, not much. He can't run anymore. Another answer was pretty different. He's still a good player, a good route runner, a big physical target that can play a ball in the air. He's still a threat. And a third played both sides of it. Still great hands, he's not going to separate. Not much of a deep threat, but very strong and makes contested catches as well as anyone in the NFL. Does not love to practice. I can't imagine that'll get any better. And when things don't get well, you're always going to be leery. All right, what kind of drama are we going to get from this guy? When things are great, he's great. When things go south, his true colors show a bit. But he always shows up on game day. He's going to have to go to a team that knows what they're getting. You cannot expect a perfect attendance type of worker. Breer suggests that Hopkins goes to a team that isn't overly reliant on him and has a strong locker room where he won't be pulled the wrong way if things go wrong. Breer draws the parallel between DeAndre Hopkins and a post-Atlanta Falcons Julio Jones. And then, of course, there is the possibility that a change of scenery brings back the old DeAndre Hopkins. At the end of the day, I think the best landing spot for him would be the Kansas City Chiefs. You either arrive there on a prove-it deal and you become a huge part of the offense, and we get to see the equivalent of the 2007 Patriots with Tom Brady and Randy Moss being replicated by Patrick Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins, or you essentially see what happened with Julio Jones when he was in Tampa Bay and Tennessee. Either way, if I'm DeAndre Hopkins, I would choose to go to a team that doesn't have a clear-cut number one wide receiver. And I guess you could say that about the Baltimore Ravens, even though they paid Odell Beckham Jr. a significant amount of money. If D-Hop goes there, he's going to be a completely different type of wide receiver than OBJ. OBJ is a vertical threat and a monster after the catch. DeAndre Hopkins is more of a large target that could come down with 50-50 balls at the very minimum at this stage of his career. If you want to set yourself up for one more big bag, then you have to go to a team like the Chiefs, whose top wide receivers looking like Kadarius Toney this year, unless if Justin Ross takes the next step, or Sky Moore takes the next step, or Marquez Valdez-Scantling takes the next step. I don't necessarily know, because it looks like the Chiefs are just picking out wide receivers like John and Justin Ross and hoping that one of them fulfills their potential. The Buffalo Bills are a little bit more of a complicated situation. Between Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, I'm not necessarily sure where DeAndre Hopkins fits there. In my opinion, the Buffalo Bills need a speedy wide receiver for the slot. I don't necessarily think DeAndre Hopkins makes a lot of sense when you have a 6'2" wide receiver in Gabe Davis and a 6' wide receiver in Stephon Diggs, but I could be wrong. I think it's really interesting that teams are afraid of DeAndre Hopkins because of these reasons, and I never thought it would get to this point. I thought he'd get signed within a couple of days, to be honest. So let me know in the comment section down below, what team do you think DeAndre Hopkins is most likely to sign with? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.